Hello and welcome to Warrior Women of Faith. My name is Faye Arbaugh, your host, and today I have Thomas Dunn with me. We are doing a hot topic show, and Tom and I are teaming up. We are joining forces, so to speak, because we feel that there are a lot of topics that need to be discussed and need to be covered. And we want to do all that we can to try to get the message out to those that are out there that that may need to hear whatever it is that that the Father has put on our hearts and minds. And there is a plethora of things to talk about. They're innumerable. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Thomas Dunn. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Faye. I'm excited about doing this. This is going to be really cool.
Yeah, me too. And, it's just something that the Father has put on my heart and my mind. And I know that you have such an ability to motivate people, and I can never think of anybody better to help people to become motivated. And when you get to know Tom and you hear him and you listen to the things that he talks about, it motivates me. And so I know if I can get motivated, then others can. And, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that we can become involved in. And, you pick what's on your heart. And so, I wanted to do this with Tom, and we talked about it for a little while, and Tom is all for it. I know that he has an extremely busy schedule, but it's what I love about you as well, Tom, is that your heart is in it, and you're always willing to jump in and do whatever you can when there's a need or a cause. And I appreciate that about you, and I appreciate you doing this with me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love this show, and I love the fact that you started this, and you're saying I motivate you. This is amazing. Here you are stepping out, doing this show. I think there's so many people out there, Faye, that don't know they can do this, really.
Yeah.
And if, I always say this, if 100 people started a show tomorrow, it wouldn't be enough. We need people that are, that can do this. You don't have to be a great, communicator. That helps, but you can get experience. The thing is, you can reach people that I can't. You have people in your sphere of influence that I can't reach, and it's going to be a good thing, And
Yes.
if you only reach 15 people, that's amazing.
Yes,
that is amazing. And I just encourage people out there. What is it that you can do? It may not be a podcast. It might be something else. But I'm blown away by this podcast. And I remember when you started it, when you asked me on the first time, I love seeing this stuff. I love seeing things like this start up. So when you told me about this, I was like, yes, let's do it. I'm busy, but I don't care. I want to do it. I'm not too busy to get on and to encourage and to work with a sister who's out there already, boots on the ground, front line, exposing this stuff and doing evangelism. So this is amazing.
Well, and I think that's the great part of it, is that we're all busy. We live extremely fast-paced lives, and but there's always a place that we can step out, that we can do more. And I've prayed for this for many, many years of my life. It's taken a long, long time for me to get to where I am, and for the Father to use me in such a way is such a blessing. And it thrills me to hear the testimonies of people, to hear what people have been brought out of and delivered from. That is just amazing to me. Every person that I've interviewed, and we've done, I think, 16 or 17 interviews now, shows, and every single one of them, I'm just amazed. I'm astounded. And it makes my heart rejoice, because I feel like very little of it is about me. I don't want anything actually to be about me. I want it to be about the Father and what He has done. That is the whole point, is showing what He can, will, and has done, in people's lives. And I'm passionate about that. I just want to do more. And there's so much more that I want to do. Every time I hear you or Jared or numbers of people put stuff out, it makes me, I think about it. I think, man, what can I do to get on board with this? How can I get involved? And a lot of times we feel like, well, I can't do this, but maybe you can do something else. I hear more about the SRA victims, and the sex trafficking and abortion, and I talk to these people that are 100% giving their hearts and souls to these specific topics, and it lights a fire in me. And it may not be something that I can specifically do at this moment or this place in my life, but I can share what they have. I can go out there and, I was thinking the other day, this is kind of funny, but when I was a kid, and I've always felt like I never really had much to offer because I didn't go to college. I was an average student in school. I never was accelerated in learning and that kind of thing. So I always felt like, I'm average. I don't feel like I'm dumb, but I don't feel like I'm any kind of scholar. And, I was thinking about when I was a kid, and the thing that I always got in trouble for was talking. All through school, I got in trouble for talking, and I wasn't ever bad. Like, I didn't get in trouble for, stealing or, doing anything bad. I got in trouble for talking. And I thought about how the Father has used that over the years. And then here I am, He has used this ability that I have to talk, and helped to, bring other people to the place that they can talk and that they can share, because there's so much power in that. And so
that's funny, because you just reminded me of an incident in high school where I got in trouble, and it was for a similar thing that I do now. My friend and I went to this Christian concert of this band called DeGarmo and Key. And
I remember them. Yeah.
You remember them?
Yeah.
And they had these T-shirts that said on the back of them, they said, "Boycott hell." So him and I had these shirts, and we were walking through school, and they're like, nope, you can't wear this. This has the word hell on it, right? But yeah, I mean, some of the things that the other kids were wearing, I mean, there's a ton of people breaking the rules according to the rule book,
Right.
And in school, and we weren't using it as a cuss word. It was, we were using it as a place, you know?
Yeah.
And so we got pulled into the office and we had to cover our shirts up, you know? So anyway, yeah, I guess I got in trouble. You know, that makes sense, you know? I can relate with your story. But
Yeah,
anyway.
you know, sometimes we don't realize our gifts and what we, you know, what we have inside of us, and the Father can reveal those things to us and show us, you know, what it is that he can use if we're willing. And, you know, that's what it takes, is prayer and just asking him, you know, what can I do? How can I step out of my comfort zone? And that's hard. It is. It's a tough place because, you know, and I'll be honest, just since I did my interview with Evangeline, your daughter, and Lexi, I have been searching abortion clinics in my area, and I still haven't done it. I haven't went to one. I've never done that. And the one that is closest to me is about an hour away. And, you know, and I keep thinking, how can I do this? And, you know, I don't really have anybody that I'm like, who can I ask to go with me? Who's going to be willing to do this? And I keep coming up with, I don't know. And so, you know, it's something that I want to do. It may not be something that is, you know, like Evangeline, that she does, you know, regularly, and Lexi, that her and her mother do regularly, but it's something that I have a desire in my heart. And, you know, when the time comes, if the time comes and it's, you know, for me, then it'll happen. But, you know, there is a certain amount of fear that I have of stepping out into that. And so I understand, you know, people's reservations about coming out of their comfort zone and doing something or talking about something, because, you know, the things that we're talking about are difficult. They're difficult topics. They're hard to, you know, understand sometimes.
Well,
And
yeah, Faye, keep in mind you're in good company, because don't forget, Paul asked for prayer. He said, pray for me that I would be bold.
yes.
And, you know, we think of Paul, he wrote most of the New Testament. Paul went to prison for his boldness. And he said, pray that I would be bold.
Yeah.
So, you know, even the best is asking for more boldness. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not out there as much as I like to, but just the fact that you're shining a light, you know, on other people that are doing it is amazing. And
well, and that's the point I want to make
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, is just being transparent and knowing that we all have fear within us. We all have, you know, our human tendencies is to stay, you know, comfortable, to stay safe. Because honestly, when you get involved in these things, and you know this firsthand, when we become involved, we become automatic enemies of Satan, the devil, and he does not want us to do these things. He does not want us involved in anything. Right. But what we have to keep in mind is our God is greater. Our God, you know, has more power, and when we see the fruits of the labor that we put into that, then it makes it worthwhile. It makes it, you know, when you see people being set free, when you see people being delivered, when you see people changing from death to life, you know, when you hear stories of people that have been, you know, held in bondage and have been captive their whole lives, and then the Father miraculously sets them free, that you can't get any better than that, to me personally.
No, yeah. You know, an inspiration to me is Daniel. Daniel was in Babylon, surrounded by just darkness and people that were practicing an occult, and the king was changing all these things. He says, you're going to eat this, you're going to read this, and I'm even going to change your name. And even in all that, he was bold, and he's, you know, and then the three, you know, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the fiery furnace, they would not bow. And God was there for them, you know. And Daniel, he went, you know, to his room, opened up the window, and prayed 3 times a day. They threw him in the lion's den for it, you know. So we see God is there for us. You know, I had an incident the other night when we were in Iowa, where we were doing a showing of the film, and there were some protesters down the road. They wouldn't call themselves protesters, but they were having an alternative event. And I went out, I thought, well, I'm going to go over there, you know, and invite them to the show and just say, hey, you know, the things that you're saying are not true. And I went the first time and I drove by. I was like, no, I'm not going in there. I don't want to go in there, you know. They hate my gut. And I'm by myself, which, okay, this is a horrible example. You should never go by yourself. But I just, because Jesus sent everybody out in twos, right? So, you know, even to get the donkey, I always say. So I went by, I turned around, I was like, okay, just go do this. So I went in there, you know, and it was, everything was all right. It was peaceful. These guys were not hostile. They were very polite to me. And we had a civil, you know, conversation, which was good. And I'm not saying that, you know, to say, hey, look how brave you are to go down there. I'm saying that, hey, the first time I drove by, you know, and I had to get my courage up, and I was like, and I turned around up the road, and I was like, I'm just going to go back to the church. I mean, obviously these guys don't want to come, right? Or they would come. But I just thought, you know, and I pulled in and I got out of the car, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. You know, what's going to happen? You know,
right.
Because we've run into a lot of these guys that are very hostile, very violent, very, you know, a lot of things. Yeah. And I don't like confrontation. Okay. It's not, you know, we, and last thing I want to go up and do and, you know, tell these guys they're wrong. I didn't necessarily have to do that. I just said, hey, you know, I'm the director of the film that you guys are protesting, and you know, what you're saying is not true. And you know, maybe if you guys would want to watch it, it's playing free over there. And then, you know, if you watch it and you still think it's hateful, then that would be fair. But I don't think it's fair to say it's hateful without watching it. So anyway, it was nobody harmed me. You know, nobody yelled at me, nobody cussed at me. But even if they did, you know, that's fine, whatever. You know, we're going to face that kind of persecution. There's Christians all over the world that are facing much, much worse than what we were facing here. So,
yes, I totally agree. So, just real quickly, so that this kind of leads into what we're, you know, wanting to do. Tom and I would like to do like a regular monthly show possibly, and but we hopefully in the future can do these live so we can get more people involved, get interaction, and be able to talk to the listeners that are out there, those that are interested in sharing and being a part, or that have questions, because, you know, we want to be able to talk to you guys. We want to share, and we want to be able to hear what you have. We want to know what hot topics do you want to hear about? What do you want to discuss? What is on the hearts and minds of the people that are listening, that are out there, that, you know, maybe we can help, maybe we can give some ideas, or share whatever it is, whatever, you know, is out there. So that is the goal for this show, for Hot Topics. And so that's how we're going to try to move forward. You know, we'll see how things play out and work out in the future, because my new saying is what I read in James a couple weeks ago is, if it is the Lord's will, and if we live, then we shall do this or that. and I read the book of James while, a couple weeks ago, and that just caught my eye, and I'm like, that's what, what we should be saying. That's what James said that we should be saying, because we don't know what's going to happen or what will hold tomorrow, but that's the way we'll proceed. So today I thought we could just briefly talk over sex trafficking. When I was in Ohio, Upper Ohio, about a month or so ago, we were at the Occupy conference, and I got to listen to Tom's presentation up there, his talk about sex trafficking, and there was a lot of information that I didn't know. They had a lot of information to hand out, a lot of brochures and things that people from your table were handing out and making us aware. And so I just pulled this little brochure out that they had up there, and it says, "What can you do?" And it gives a lot of good information, on how we can identify victims of sex trafficking, human trafficking. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts, Tom? What do you have?
No, I don't have one of those papers in front of me, Faye, but a friend of mine gave me those, who has done just a ton of research, and she goes to all the a lot of the conferences on human trafficking. Ohio is a big place for human trafficking. Toledo is one of the capitals in the world. I just came from Iowa, and we went by one of the major places out in Iowa, which people would not suspect, but it's a world's biggest truck stop, and they move humans through there. So when we talk about human trafficking, I've been talking about this the last couple of days in private conversations with some friends in Iowa, and people got to realize, okay, you understand what drug trafficking is, right? People selling drugs, okay, making a profit off of drugs. But once you sell that drug, that's gone. That's consumed. You're never going to get it back, okay? You've made the money that you're going to make off of that. The people that are involved in drug trafficking are wicked, and they're unsaved. They're people listening to me understand what I'm saying. They are selling a product that just brings destruction, right? Yes. So for somebody's heart that's darkened, it's easy for them to transition from drug trafficking over to human trafficking, because if you sell a human, you can use that person over and over again, whether it's through forced labor, whether it's through sex work, or things like this. The other part of it is organ harvesting. In these different parts of the world, these are issues, right? I mean, we can see the organ harvesting really coming out of China, in places like that. And people are wicked, okay? And they're looking for vulnerabilities. So when there's a crisis in a country, because we heard about organ harvesting coming out of Haiti when there was an earthquake, and people moved in and tried to take advantage of what was going on like that. So anyway, I forget where I was going with the question. How did I start out? Okay, so it's easy. I just want to explain to people, why in the world would one human being do that to another human being, okay? And our country has a history of it. The world has a history of this, okay? Every culture has, we've seen slavery. Mm-hmm. As believers in Christ, we know that Christians are at the forefront of seeing slaves free. Our God was the one, who sent Moses to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Let my people go. We're the ones, and there's a lot of atheists will try to say, well, Christians got it wrong on slavery because of the language used in the New Testament. Slaves, obey your masters. That's not what that's about, okay? We do not condone slavery by any means whatsoever. We are the ones that are at the forefront of trying to set the captives free. So let me just talk about this for a minute. Forced labor. Don't think that this is not happening in America, because type in your, do a search, do a search engine search, type in your state, and then type in forced labor and see what comes up. You're probably going to find some articles where especially restaurants have been busted on using people, in forced labor. And this is going to happen in a lot of your Asian restaurants. I'm not saying every one of them. Some of them are family owned and they're fine. But we've seen this happen, and you can look, I use an example in my presentation from just one story in Ohio. There were several that came up, but I just used one story that took place down in the Dayton area of a lady who was being used, and they were working her like 18 hours a day or some ridiculous amount. And I mean, there's all kinds of brainwashing and things like that are involved in, doing this to people. So the human traffickers are looking for vulnerabilities. So somebody that comes over to America illegally is at very high risk to being trafficked. And here's one of the tricky things, Faye, is a lot of people would rather be a slave in America than be free in their own country, because even the conditions of being a slave, either a sex worker or forced labor, are better conditions than their own country.
Yeah.
So they won't even protect themselves. They won't even out themselves or try to get help, because they're afraid they're going to get sent back to those conditions. Isn't that insane that this is the world that we live in?
Yes,
so,
it is.
Yeah. And
it's hard to even think about it, because we don't, if we've not been in that environment, it's hard to understand. And, I'll say I've lived, West Virginia. I lived in the backwoods mountains of West Virginia growing up, most of my childhood. So I've never really been in the big city environment. I've never really been in the areas where this stuff is been going on. But, right now where I live, a couple miles across the river from Huntington, West Virginia, which is one of the major drug capitals. The drug epidemic in this town in Huntington has just been blown off the charts literally over the last few years. And so the drug epidemic is horrible. I mean, they even did a Netflix documentary on it. And the EMS workers can't even keep up with it. I used to work in EMS, so that drew me. I started thinking about it, and it's astronomical. And so then in my mind, if you have a drug epidemic, then you have all the other things that go along with it. You have prostitution, you have sex trafficking, you have, abortion, all these other things. They all kind of work together. It's like one big ball that they work together with. And, because normally when you have one, you have all of them.
Right.
And, when you gave your presentation at Occupy, and I think you had a chart or a graph that showed the top part of the United States and the eastern coast of the drug trafficking, and you had all these red dots, and I was just amazed, because it never really dawned on me, because I would think that part of the country, would be safer and not realizing, but where the bodies of water is, because I was even telling my husband about it when I came home. I was like, where the body of water is, from across the United States and down the East Coast, that's where it's taking place. Those are the ports, the cities, where people are being sold. They're coming in and going out and being sold, and they're never heard from again. And to me, that's horrifying, and I live just within a few hours of that. And so, it scares me. It scares me for my grandchildren. It scares me for, the people. And it got me thinking, and I was looking at this brochure, and it talks about the different places where these people lurk, and they lay and they wait for their victims, just like a predator would. And it says they may be found in places of worship, schools, homes, hotels, restaurants, construction sites, farms, bus or train stations, airports, neighborhood parks, truck stops, and highway rest area, or massage parlors, bars, and strip clubs. So there's a whole barrage of places, and it just got me thinking more about it. It brought it to my attention to where I'm looking, and I've noticed myself when I'm out looking at people. I'm a people watcher anyhow. I love to watch people and analyze how people work and that kind of thing. So it's got me thinking more and paying more attention as to where these people are and who the vulnerable are. And it's everywhere, really.
It is everywhere. And I was, as you were talking, I was looking back over my notes from the conference, because I haven't really looked at them since. So, and I'm just thinking there's so many things to touch on with this topic, but calling the show a hot topic show, it's like, why are we bringing this issue to anybody that's listening? Because we want you to know we don't want you to do anything else, and we hope you have a bad day. No. We want to ruin, we want to ruin your weekend. No, because we need to do something about it. Okay.
Yes.
Law enforcement is overwhelmed. Okay. And they're undertrained, and nothing against the law enforcement. God bless them.
Right.
But obviously there's a lot of work to do, and they can't do it all. And there's not enough resources.
Yes.
And they can't keep up. And not only that, but they're reactionary. Okay. They show up after somebody's called. They're very seldom are they going to show up before a crime is committed. Okay. And their hands are full. And, and there is also the fact of corruption. And this is not, anybody who is an officer, whether it's federal or local, knows this is true.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they getting away with this on such a large scale and nothing is being done about it? We want to bring this issue to believers, because believers are the ones that have the most ability and most power by the Spirit of God living inside them to do something about this.
Yeah.
Because we're human trafficking. Look above that. Okay. Human trafficking deals with humans, wicked people, involved in this stuff. But there is a force behind that driving people, and they're, and protecting these traffickers that, from getting, caught. So I want to use an example here real quick. So my mind is going in 5 different directions, but my friend Russ Dizdar was on a little trip down south of me, and they went to they had to stop at a gas station to use the restroom, and one of the crew from Russ Dizdar's crew went in to use the restroom, and there was a lady in there hiding out, and she got to talking to him, and she said, there are people out there in the truck, and I'm afraid to go out there because it was a human trafficking situation. So long story short, the crew member told Russ went over to the truck and said, hey, give us her stuff. She's coming with us, and you don't go anywhere. You're going to jail, pretty much. So, okay, how did that happen? I don't know. I mean, when you hang out with Russ, that kind of stuff happens, but that's not the point. God can use us if we make ourselves available to him. You're even saying you're being more aware. Chances are, if you're looking real hard, you're not going to find it. Okay.
Right.
But
Right.
if we're ready, if we're saying, Lord, and I know Russ, and I'm using this as an example because as he goes about his day, that's his prayer. Lord, use me, show
Yeah.
me, and the scripture that I had pulled up, a little bit ago was Colossians 4:2 that I wanted to share with people today. It says, just to paraphrase, devote yourself to prayer, keeping or being watchful. Okay. That word watchful translates look out for impending danger. Okay. There's two
Yes.
instructions there: pray and look out for danger. It may not necessarily be our danger, but it could be. And here's an example. We can say, hey, this is going on. There's over 40 million human slaves on the earth today. This is insane. And we could talk about the use in pornography. We can talk about, the use in forced labor, whatever, and everything that's going on overseas. But this is an epidemic.
Yes.
And if Christians are the ones at the forefront fighting this, then let's do it. Okay. Let's do it. Not everybody's going to be a Russ Dizdar who rolls down the road and stops at a gas station and this happens too. But
Right.
we have to be watchful. We have to be in prayer and be ready because the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Pray the Lord of the harvest would send more workers, people that are saying, I want to be available. And what usually happens when we learn something and we're trained in something, Russ told me this years ago and I didn't believe him. He said, you take this training, you do this, and then God is going to send the people to you, and you're going to find yourself in those situations. So, having that pamphlet there, is just one example. Now, that pamphlet is not going to train you spiritually, but it's going to prepare you to look for things,
Yes.
There's a ton of ministries that people good Christian ministries, and also things, that aren't necessarily Christian, but they're good programs that are actively going after human trafficking. I mean, there's no shortage of them. You do a search for human trafficking organizations and probably 20 of them will pop up. There's some really good ones out there. Do your research to get involved. But, hot topics, we just don't want to, inform you and then you go about your day. We want people to get involved. This may not be your thing. Maybe it's something else. Maybe pro-life work's not your thing. Maybe it's something else. Who knows?
Right.
But we all are in this together, and we want to get people active on some level doing something.
Like we said before, one thing leads to another. This reminds me of an old song. But, it's true when, it's, sex trafficking leads to prostitution, leads to abortion, leads to, on and on and on and on. I mean, and it just, like I said before, it all just works hand in hand. So, and becoming aware is just so important of understanding how these things work. And, not even, because I mean, I'm still learning. Every time I listen to one of your talks or I, go to a conference and hear other people speak, I learn more about SRA. I learn more about, what to look for in people. And, Russ Dizdar is right. The people will come to you when the Father is using you and your heart is prepared and your mind is prayed up and you're ready for battle. The Father will bring people to you. I have people that write me and message me and call me and, asking for prayer and asking for, help in a situation. And, I've had people that have asked to do, or that have wanted to share their testimony. And, if I have had a couple people that I felt like, if I let them share this testimony, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to get hurt. And so I had to tell a few people, I don't think you're ready for this right now, because spiritually there, I don't want somebody to end up putting themselves out there and, getting getting hurt worse than what they already are, and then having to reel from that. So, it does take preparation, and it does take a lot of prayer and being able to discern different situations and the things that are going on. But, another thing real quickly that caught my attention when you gave your talk was about children and sex trafficking. And I mean, it's so utterly disgusting. It just absolutely blows my mind. But I think you gave a statistic on children that were in foster care. You're talking about children in foster care, and how these children, that once they get into the foster care system, a lot of times they don't come out, and they end up in, being into this, ring of fire, so to speak, because it's just, they get stuck and they get trapped. And so talk, if you would, just a little bit about that.
Let me read a quote from a guy named Carlos Morales, who's not a Christian, but he's a former CPS worker and whistleblower. And this is his very bold statement about CPS. So, and then we'll talk about this for a minute. And if I could figure out how to do a screen share, okay. It says CPS is a system that profits off of converting children into cash while destroying their families and communities. Here's a guy who worked for CPS. He wanted to do something good. He got in and he saw that, wow, this is kind of crazy what's going on here. Nancy Schaefer, who was a Georgia state senator, exposed CPS and what was going on. Long story short, she was killed in a, what was made to look like a murder-suicide back in 2010. CPS, and I'm looking again here for my notes on this. So what's going on is they're finding out, and they're finding this out across the pond as well, is that there are people in Child Protective Services who are predators and who are using their authority, so to speak, to traffic children. I'll just give an example, and people can look up this story. This happened in the last 6 months. I believe it was Riverside, California. They did a bust on a child pornography ring, and they found that over 75% of the children that were used in this ring were supposed to be in the custody of CPS. Child pornographers, human traffickers are signing up to be foster parents, and then they're taking advantage of the children. So obviously there's background checks and, all kinds of things like this, but if you've never been caught, then you're not going to show up, your crimes are not going to show up on a background check. So they're finding this over and over. Where is a predator going to go? He's going to go where the prey is.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same thing. I mean, people who are predators are working for CPS, and I feel kind of I haven't really looked at this issue or my notes since the conference, but I mean, one of the things that I said boldly there is like, there's no fixing CPS. It needs to be shut down, and that we need another program in its place because it's so corrupt. And no offense to the good people out there that are working in CPS, and I don't even know how to address them. But what happens, just like what happens on corrupt police forces or in politics, good people enter into those places. We know that happens. Daniel is an example of kind of a politician. I mean, he worked for Nebuchadnezzar, and he was a good guy. He was surrounded by bad guys. But good people get in there and they look around and they're like, man, there's nothing but wickedness in here. I don't want to be surrounded by this wickedness. So they quit. Or they become corrupted. They become compromised. They become, I mean, they have ways of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and I could talk about that, how, you know, when somebody's brought into a federal agency like the FBI, and they will set it up, and they'll be on a mission somewhere, and they will send a prostitute knocking on your door and say, hey, everything's paid for. Okay. And I've heard that story so many times. And depending on what decision that agent makes will decide which direction they do. If this guy gives into it, then he may not get put on certain cases because they want somebody that's corrupt. That's just an example. And the same thing can work in CPS, okay? And
Yeah.
I don't want to make a general statement saying every person that's doing this is a bad person that's involved in the CPS. There are good ones out there, but the overall system is out of control. And the information on this, again, we're giving you little morsels of things that you can look up. You can look up, these videos are out there. This information is out there on CPS. And the guy that I just quoted, Carlos Morales, he's a good source. Again, not a Christian, but a good source for what's going on in the CPS. He has a lot of videos out there, and he'll tell you right on the inside, they're looking for people, okay, because they get kickbacks, they get money when kids are taken out of their home. Okay, and they're looking for a helpless, you know. So it's like a wolf. A wolf is not going to attack something that can get away from him. You know, he's going to attack something, you know, that's easy prey. And they're looking for easy prey, people that don't know what's going on. Let me give you another example real quick, Faye. I want to talk about this. So in custody battles, okay, here's another example of where the system is broken. Say a father is abusing the children, okay? So they go before the judge, and the mother is irate because this abuse is taking place. Her, you know, emotions are up, and she looks like an unstable place for the child to reside. The father's there, he's done the abuse, but he's, you know, he's calm, he's fine. And a lot of times the judge will use that and make a decision saying, you know what, this guy doesn't seem like he's losing his mind. I'm going to go ahead and put the kids there. That happens time and time and time again. That's just one example, okay? And I mean,
well, I can testify to that myself. I mean, you know, in my own family, I mean, my father was my abuser, and my father was a registered nurse. He worked at the hospital for years. Then he worked with FMC. He worked with DuPont. My dad always had, you know, excellent jobs. He, you know, on the outside, it looked like we had, you know, an upstanding family. And, you know, my dad was an outgoing, fun, likable person. He did not look creepy. He did not look bad. You know, he wasn't an alcoholic. He wasn't an abuser as far as hitting us or anything like that. So on the outside, my dad was, you know, a great guy, and, you know, everybody loved him. But yet, you know, on the inside, there was this horrific, you know, abuse that was taking place. Spiritism, you know, you name it. There was all kinds of demonic strongholds and demonic things that were taking place in my family. But, you know, so you can't really go on that, because I completely understand what you're saying. You know, things can look deceiving. I mean, you know, Satan can transform himself into an angel of light. So we know that, you know, things can look totally different. We tend to think when we look at people, you know, we think, oh, it's the people that are, their clothes are dirty, their hair's dirty, they haven't, you know, had a bath in a week. And, you know, we look at certain aspects of people and that's what we think. But there is so much going on just like you said, on the inside, that these people that have nice homes and good cars that are taking children in, that are using and abusing satanic cults, that, you know, these are the people that are doing these things, that are getting away with it because of how they look on the outside. To me, that has a large populace. What do you think about that?
No, I agree, and I don't want to create paranoia or panic, and I don't want people to think that,
Right.
wow, we think this is everywhere. But I'm telling you what, it's a lot bigger than what people think it is.
Yes.
And it's sophisticated. They're good at networking. And I don't believe every single person out there is involved in this, but I'm telling you,
Right.
most Satanists, the real Satanists, I'm not talking about the kids that are, listening to metal music and, wearing leather jackets and look like they belong in a gang somewhere. Those guys, they have their own issues, and many times they're dangerous, and they've committed plenty of crimes and even human sacrifice. But I'm talking about the dark Luciferian type. They look like Leave It to Beaver. That's exactly what they look like.
Yeah.
It's the Brady Bunch, and nobody would know. And they probably go to church somewhere. One of the things, I believe it was Kathy O'Brien, who is a survivor of SRA and government mind control programs. In her testimony, she was sexually abused by her dad. And according to her testimony, again, I don't endorse everything that she says, but it lines up with other things that we have heard. This part does, is the government found out about the abuse, and they said, we will not prosecute you if you just turn her over to us, because she was already pretty much broken in and just really good for what they needed. So they said, thank you for the work you've done, pretty much. If you turn her over to us, we will not prosecute you. And we've heard that lots of times, but that's just another example. Yes. So I don't want to, here's the thing. Our God is bigger. He's more powerful than this. When I did my talk up there, I said, I am declaring war on apathy and on fear. Okay. And, complacency. So we have this apathy. People just don't care. They don't want to get involved. They want what Francis Schaeffer said in his book, How Should We Then Live? Personal peace and affluence. In other words, don't bother me. I won't bother you. Let me live in my world. Let me go to church on Sunday and do this and do that and go to work and play with my kids and go to baseball games. That's great. That's great. But they just don't want that world rocked. Yeah. And when you step across the line and you get involved in something like this, you begin to care something about this, it shakes up your happy little home.
Yes.
And it's apathy. It's apathy and complacency, and people that, they don't care, or they do care, they know about it, and they won't get involved. And then there's fear. We have to take all those off the table. Yes. If everybody would do a little bit of something, we could beat this. There's no reason in the world that abortion should be legal in America, with all the Christians that we have, people proclaiming that they're Christians.
Yeah.
That could just take time to write a letter, to stand up, to reach out, to speak out, and I mean, there's a fear out there. We have to overcome that fear, and we have to take it off the table. Apathy, complacency, fear, take it off the table, and just, if you have to wade in the shallow water first, do it,
Yes.
but start stepping in and seeing what you can do. So we're not bringing these things to you just so you can know about it and not do anything.
Totally. Yes, 100%. And I don't want it to be, I agree with you. I want these things to be recognizable. I want them to be a topic of prayer. Mm-hmm. First of all, if you're in a situation that you can't physically do anything, pray. Start seeing the topics that need intercessory prayer, that need someone praying on behalf of these victims, these people that are out there that are being, tormented and used and abused and hurt and, anything that you can imagine, literally.
I've had this hit close to home a couple different times. And one issue was with a family member. It wasn't a close family member, but it was a distant cousin. And this person was going into treatment in Toledo, human trafficking capital, we say of the world. I mean, a lot of people say that. And they went up there in a drug treatment program. They left the place and to make a phone call about a job. They got pulled out. They got kidnapped, and this person was missing. Flyers went up. They were up all across this town. This was a distant cousin of mine. Okay, I knew this person, and this happened. Like, I don't live close to Toledo, but they were looking for this person. It was a missing person. This was a issue of prayer in my family for a long time, and we prayed and prayed, and I was just like, what's going on? Where is this person? This is crazy, and even though it's a distant cousin, it hits home. So what the family did is the police did everything they could do. They hired a private detective to go up there. They found her on the street, and she was being pimped out, just plain and simple. And they were able to get her and get her back home. So
you think about that and you wonder, I mean, how did she fall into that trap? Have you talked to her about that?
I have not talked to her. It's like I said, it's a distant cousin. I know other people have talked about that, but it's the girl is just she's a mess. She is a mess. And not only, she was already having substance abuse issues before that, but then after that, she's just really, really been struggling. And we've tried to make ourselves available. Hey, is there anything that we can do? But we haven't been called upon. So it was a situation where from everything we understand, she was kidnapped. And they somehow found her up, on the streets up there in that area. And that area is interesting because there's a story. You can look this up. 3 pastors from the Toledo area were busted. And I heard about this long before it hit the paper because a friend of mine was on the grand jury that indicted these 3 pastors in the Toledo area for human trafficking. So, if you can't trust your pastor, who can you trust, right?
Right.
So this goes back to what you've already been saying, Faye. Look out for impending danger. Be watchful.
Yeah. I think about when I hear those stories, especially like the one of your cousin, I'll say me. I think I tend to think sometimes, well, why wouldn't that person just say no, fight? I can't I'm not doing that. Are you crazy? I'm not going to go out there and sell myself for you.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But, the thing is, and I've heard so many other women talk about this. I did an interview with a woman who was a prisoner in her own home, from the father of her children. She was imprisoned in her home. He would leave the house. He had a lock on the outside of the door and would lock her and her children in the house every day for years. And she wasn't allowed to go out. She wasn't allowed to associate with anybody. And, eventually she was able to escape that in a miraculous way. But, when a person, I just want to explain this, maybe I can explain it a little bit. When a person has been or suffered abuse, and normally this starts from a very early age, it changes your way of thinking. It changes your world. It changes your view of people and everybody around you. And you automatically are a victim. Okay. So that from that point forward, you're trying to figure out who the victimizers are, who's going to victimize you next. And so your brain becomes very jumbled with people. And then victimizers, people who seek out those that are already hurt or have been, abused in anyway, they know what to look for. And so they seek out these people, and they seek out, like you said, those that are weak. And it's like they start searching for them. And, then that victim feels like she or he deserves that. So they continue in a cycle or pattern, and they continue to allow themselves to be victimized or abused. And a lot of times they feel that they deserve it. They feel that there is no way out. They feel there is no hope. And their life becomes a cycle, a pattern of just abuse and pain. And so they feel like there is no way to escape that. What good is it going to do for them to fight back or to say no or to stand up for themselves, because they don't even know how to do that. They've never been given a tool to be able to do that. Would you agree with that? Is there anything you'd add to that?
You're right. And the predators are good at picking out prey, and they're masters at what they do. There's so many scenarios. I'll give you one real quick. Is sometimes what they'll do is a party's going on, local kids are at a party, there's drugs, there's drinking, whatever, and then all of a sudden, they find a young girl, and they talk her into going on a road trip. Say, come on, let's get out of here. We'll take care of you. Maybe 15, 16 years old. They will, get her, drugged up or something, and cause her, influence her to make a bad decision. And that she runs away from home. She goes on a road trip, and it doesn't even have to be an underage kid. Yeah. And then they'll get out there somewhere, and they say, you know what, we're out of money. We need you to sell yourself so we can get back home. Okay. And then the whole thing's a setup. They will even videotape it. And then they will have her compromised, blackmail, and they say, if you don't work for us, we'll show this to your parents.
Yes.
That's just one example. I really want to recommend the book Fallen by Annie Lobert. And I don't know if anybody's ever read that book. I listened to the audio. The audio is really good because she reads the book, okay? And she tells the story about how she moved from Minneapolis to Las Vegas and became a prostitute, and how what she thought was her boyfriend groomed her, treated her like a queen, and then turned her out in Las Vegas. She got back from a prostitution visit that she did, and he said, okay, now give me all your money. She's like, what? I'm not giving you my money. He beat her almost to death.
Yeah.
And then it's a mind control thing. That's why people do it. Okay. And they will beat, a pimp will beat down one of his girls and then take her out shopping. Yeah. And it just messes with their mind so much they don't even know there's drugs involved. All these, a pimp is a master. He's just a mind control agent. They're masters at what they do. Yeah. I remember hearing a quote from, I haven't seen this story, but somebody else talking about how this woman was in a hospital emergency room, and she was crying because she felt so bad that she couldn't give her pimp the money. I'm so sorry I can't serve you. I'm so sorry I can't make the money for you. I'm going to get out there, and get, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get out there and work for you, just craziness. So that's just one example. That they're really good at what they do, whether it's a pimp or whether it's somebody that's trafficking women out in other countries. They always make a promise. Hey, we're going to give you honest work. We have this, and they show the example, and they trick them. And then when they get there, they find out that it's actually sex work. and they beat them down, and they rape them, and they do all kinds of stuff, and they feel like there's no hope.
Yes.
And I can't go to the authorities because I'm illegal.
Yeah.
So you don't have anywhere to turn.
So, like we said, I don't want this to be just, I want people to see the hope. I want people to see that there is, because there are many, many stories of, people being set free from this and coming out of this. And that is the goal. That's what we want. That's what we're talking about this for, not just to share horror stories, but to share the hope that there is, and to, maybe there's somebody that'll even be listening that, they're in this position that they can come out of, that they can know that there is a way out, and that is turning to Jesus Christ. That is asking somebody that or trust for help, that can get you into a safe place, that can, and that's something, that's another thing. There's so many things and I know we need to wrap this up, but finding safe places, that's another area where people are needed, is to find, opening up a home, or opening up a place where these people can come out of and have a safe place to go to, or to transition, through to a place where they can get help. Sometimes they're fleeing for their lives, literally, yeah, and just need a halfway house. And so this is a need.
Yeah. Hey, that's exactly what I was going to say next is,
yeah,
maybe, the idea of going out there and rescuing people is just so scary to people, but there's so many opportunities in this ministry alone. If somebody out there was listening, and that, for me, I couldn't take somebody in my situation.
Right.
I have kids at home, but there are other people out there that couldn't do what I can do. But they might be like, what? I could provide somebody a place to live for 6 months and love them and disciple them and teach them and show them they have value and give them, yes, the Lord. We're all different parts of the body of Christ. You know what? Or they could say, you know what? I may not be able to do that, but I can provide food for the person who is doing it, yes, for 6 months. I mean, we need safe houses. We need people that can help in all this stuff. There's so much opportunity, and I don't want to put anybody on a guilt trip and saying, okay, you got to do something about this. But we want to battle the apathy. We want to get people caring. You be sensitive to the Lord, and He'll lead you in a place that that you will never believe that He did.
Yes.
We just got to get out there working in one way or another.
Amen. I totally agree. And so we'll just close with that, and know that there are so many ways that we can all be a part, that we can help, that and again, I just would say, start with prayer. Just start with praying. Just start with asking the Father to show you, directly what it is that you can do, and continue to educate ourselves, to be aware of what's going on, to be aware of these things that are overtaking, our young people. That's our biggest concern as far as I'm concerned, is our youth, because if we don't start reaching out and protecting them, then, there's not going to be any, the battle is not getting weaker, it's getting stronger. And so we need to be prepared. We need to have, our armor on every day and be ready for battle. So that's my advice, is if you don't know what to do, start out praying and start out asking the Father to show you where to go, and he will lead you. I guarantee it. If you're committed, he will lead you. So what do you have in closing, Tom?
Well, that's just it. Just be sensitive to God. I always get an idea, and God always has a better idea.
Right.
And you just get the creative juices flowing, and you get talking with somebody else, and our conversation here has been all over the place today, Faye, but somebody
Right.
can take this and find something good out of it and get an idea that would blow our minds,
Yes.
And I want to say this real quick. It's just kind of like, and I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show last time or not. There was a lady who had an idea to do a sign language ministry in her church. And she took it to the board, and they're like, well, we don't have any deaf people here, but okay, if you really feel led, then go ahead and do it. So she started doing it. And then this church became a ministry. Word got out, and this church became a ministry to deaf people. And then people started showing up because they didn't have any other place to go to hear
Yes.
God's word, because nobody else was doing it. So even though the board was even like, I don't know if this is a good idea, the Lord laid it on her heart to do that.
Yes.
So there's no such thing as a dumb idea, and you can take a dumb idea and make it into something that works.
Yes.
So just be sensitive to God, and he will lead you. He is faithful. He is good, and he takes, the people that we're up against, they have unlimited resources. They have unlimited power, but God can take, us who we think, man, we don't have that much money, or we don't have that or that. And
Right.
he can take it and expand it, and he can do amazing things with just a little bit. That's what he does. Read the Bible.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yes.
So I just want to
feed a multitude on 2 fish.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, I love that. And so yeah, I pray that this has been a blessing. And if if you're listening and you have questions, please feel free to contact Tom or I, either one, and we'll try to help you and direct you in any way that we can. Tom is throughtheblack.com, and he has tons of information out there of tons of different topics, of anything, you name it. He's got it. And he's involved in a lot. And that's why I love talking with Tom, and I'm so excited about this and doing this hot topic. So you can reach out to me at warriorwomenoffaith.org. I have email there. You can reach me by email. So we're happy to help. We're happy to do whatever we can to help the body. And that's the point, is we want to build each other up as a body of believers, and to go out, spread the good news, and to be able to reach those that are in need. And that's what our Savior did, Jesus, Yeshua. That's what he did when he was here. And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to reach those that are lost and that are needing help as well. So, Tom, do you have anything else you want to add or would like to say?
No. Just thanks for the opportunity. This has been awesome. I'm looking forward to what we're going to get into on here. This is just kind of getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And then we'll just see what happens. Like you said, my website is throughtheblack.com. I'm a filmmaker, and I make content on our YouTube channel called Through the Black. Anybody wants to check that out, you're welcome to. And we appreciate people subscribing and commenting, and we love hearing from you.
Amen. Yes. Hallelujah. And thank you guys for listening today and for being a part. And we will hopefully talk to you soon. Shalom.